Ladies and gentlemen, we have done it. We have a man that is bespectacled. He is a fractional investing thought leader. He is a man who's not afraid to crack open a few beers on a Zoom birthing class. It is my buddy, my fellow Pete, CSURAM88. How are we doing?
Mans, I'm doing well. All right, I should say Pete. I always like to call you Mans, but thrilled to be with you. You've been absolutely crushing the content streets. Loved your stream with Levitan, and excited to be with you. And I'm more excited that you're diving, I guess, head first into the NBA Top Shot, or would you say? I mean, what kind of you're off the diving board? Is it just a dive, a cannonball? Like,
have you seen when like the fat guy tries to do like a cannonball or something, and then they just belly flop in? I think that's kind of where I'm at.
That's analogous to what I did. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, we are going to talk about this NFL slate, but we do have to talk about the topic of the hour here, this Top Shot. So tell me, I know Bales had his post out on his Substack. Definitely go check that out, explaining it. How did the sausage get made? Has Bales been in your guys' ear about this for a long time? When did it get on your radar? Because when I started looking into it, it seems like it's been around now for 7-8 months, but now just catching a ton of steam.
Yeah, it's gaining a lot of momentum, and I've had people tell me about it maybe for about a month or two now. Certainly was more aware of it once the season started, and I'm really interested in cards and just kind of the collectible space, but I haven't actually invested much money at all. The scarcity and just some of the elements are, tricky for me to get my head around. Very bullish on like a sports stock market. That's something that I've always wanted to be a part of. And, I worked at Star Street for a year, and we were more focused on DFS, but the genesis of that site was a sports stock market. So I've been trying to figure this stuff out. And the more I dove into Top Shot, it seems like a really good risk reward bet. The risk is obviously sky high, and pretty much everyone has the same reaction, including myself. Like, what the hell is this? I don't get it. But after I learned more about the company, the founder, and what they're doing, I think it's really cool. And I think collectibles on the blockchain and NFTs certainly are going to be a really big part of the future.
Yeah, it was interesting because I have been very slow to get into the physical sports card stuff. I think it feels a little overwhelming from a standpoint of where to start, but then also just the mechanics of it, like ordering them, handling them, getting them graded, storing them properly. Like all of that felt like a barrier of entry where I have an addictive personality. So I'm going to go all in on stuff generally. And that one, it was just harder for me to get the on-ramp. Whereas with this, I spent like 12 hours, watching, or not nonstop, but over the past, 12 hours looking at some videos, reading up on it. And it immediately just became so much easier. It's like, oh, it's all stored here. All the marketplace is here. It just seems like the on-ramp for getting people on board with it is really simple.
Yeah, it's great. And it's a 24/7 marketplace too, which is amazing. I mean, that's the best part that I think has been a huge part of like just the crypto space's success in general, is that it's 24/7 and you can trade it anytime and buy and sell at any time. So I think that's a huge element of what's made Top Shot really grow. And that's one thing I didn't mention. I've been tracking, because all the availables available on the blockchain. There's these other sites that are tracking the volume, unique buyers, all these different stats, and I've just been watching the growth of basically Top Shot. It's by far the number one collectible site, and yeah, even in the last 24 hours, it's up probably 50-60% relative to the last day or two, and in the last 7 days, there's been over $2 million in sales, and it's really cool just to see what's happening. I mean, 50,000 packs sold in 36 hours, so. Certainly could be a zero. I tell a lot of people who are just learning about this that I think like 90% of the time this fails, but the 10% outcome I think has really, really good returns. So I think it's still like a plus EV bet. And if anything, I'll learn a lot through this whole process.
So obviously, getting some of the low serial numbers on some of these big emerging stars like you guys did with the Ja Morant one, obviously that makes a ton of sense. But say for the value investors, some of those of us not living the hashtag, how rich life, where are the kind of pockets we should be looking, whether that's a specific series, a type of moment? You know, do you have any tips for people who want to start browsing the marketplace?
Great question. And if you have any tips, I'm certainly all ears too. I'm trying to figure it out. I'll come back to that just real quick, but I do think the jaw, that was something that I was really into after, being on the platform. I loved the jaw moment. We wanted to, basically invest in a top moment. And I thought that was by far the best one available, given that it was number one. It's a cosmic, which is the most rare. It's actually Ja Morant's best moment, which I would say my biggest feedback for Top Shot is that they could do the moments better. I think that's an opportunity for growth for them. I also think it'll be interesting to see if they'll be able to create any utility behind these moments by, working with the players in the NBA, given they have the license with the NBA. But I thought the Ja Morant stood out in a lot of ways. And obviously, you want to look for the low serial numbers. I think the jersey numbers are a really cool thing as well. But yeah, going through the marketplace, people, I think the biggest inefficiency, if you're willing to grind, is that people are posting things for sale and then not going back and changing the price based on the market. So if you're looking through, you can kind of get a sense of what cards or moments, I should say, are going for relative to, basically just different serial numbers of the same moment. And sometimes you'll find some really mispriced moments just based on what everything else is going for.
So do you know what's the difference between the Holo MMXX versus the Cosmic of the Ja Morant, same style, but obviously different packaging? Like, are you in the weeds with that stuff?
Yeah, and collecting data right now. So we're trying to learn as much as we can, and it's crazy, man. Bales is the other, like, the real reason to be bullish is that Bales has been on this platform 16 hours a day. I'm talking to him at midnight, and he's just going through. But dude, it's crazy. I mean, it's definitely the craziest thing I've ever done. And it's not just a bit on Twitter. My wife not lost her mind, but she wasn't exactly thrilled given we have a baby on the way.
Yeah, it was one of those things for me. I mean, it makes it much easier to be interested when you guys are, making big bets on it. But it was one of those things where it feels so insane right away. But it now clicks for me way more than physical sports cards. Like, I see the appeal of it. And also, it's like, what's the difference if I have a sports card that sits on my shelf here versus one I can go sit on my e-shelf? I don't know. That wasn't a big leap for me. And now my brain is racing. Are we going to have these for when Michael Scott on The Office grills his foot? Are people going to own that moment as an NFT? It seems like we're headed there. Dude,
I think so. And it's so funny to me how some of these people are so obsessive about the physical cards, and they're like, oh, this has nothing. It's like, dude, how is a piece of cardboard selling for millions of dollars? Or, I mean, it's wild how much that market's improved. And to me, there's been a huge pain point trying to get into that market and trying to understand it, given how complex it is and the process. You buy something on eBay, you have to wait for it to get shipped. Then you have to make sure the grade is right. You're paying a big fee, and the whole process is just really cumbersome. So I'm with you. And I think the other thing I love about this is that the younger generations for sure are more interested in digital. I mean, they're on their devices at a young age, and makes so much sense to them. And, their brand and what's valuable to them is digital. Their social networks and their social media profiles. So I think that part of the bet also makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it's still crazy. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. I think Bales did an amazing job in his Substack explaining kind of the reasons he's interested in it. And I agree with you on the Mobits. How much would Tiger, winning the Masters and doing that fist pump after that chip in with the Nike ball go for it? The other thing that's really fascinating to me is could they potentially, tie some utility to these moments? If you own that Tiger moment, imagine Tiger is happy that Tiger had some personalized message for you. Or if you collected the whole NBA set because they have the partnership with the NBA, you got a courtside ticket. I mean, I'm just spitballing random ideas, but I feel there's a lot of directions they could go. And then, yeah, to your point, all the moments, there's some pretty funny DFS moments out there. So it'd be great to see those on the blockchain. And yeah, I mean, sky's the limit. So, and also last point on that, dude, we're just scratching the surface with this stuff in terms of AR and VR and all this digital art. I think the world just changes so much. I mean, have you gone down the augmented reality rabbit hole at all?
I have not gone down that one yet.
Dude.
Other than the one where I picture myself winning the Millie Maker. That's really kind of the augmented reality that I do, Pete.
Okay. That's not really augmented reality.
No. Okay.
Dude, I mean, it's crazy. Like, imagine you walk in and like, obviously it's the same reality, but there's digital stuff that you can poke and like, the world's changing so fast. So,
well, here's another quick. Do you know any? Because I haven't, in poking around looking at Top Shot, I haven't seen a lot about how their official relationship with the NBA worked out. Do you know any bit about the mechanics of that? And could we get an NFL one sooner rather than later? Great
question. And the NFL one could be badass. Like some of these touchdowns, like the first guy I'd want to buy is like AJ Brown. But the founder of this, Roham, has done a lot of really cool projects. He started CryptoKitties, which obviously skyrocketed, and they have a bunch of money behind this. And I guess that's another reason, that we were excited to invest in a moment, is that this platform has legitimate big funding, clearly a really good team, in my opinion, a really cool product. And the NBA license, I mean, seeing Tyler Hero promote this, like, I think is really, really cool. So, to your question about other sports, I hope it comes to fruition at some point. And man, there'd be some really cool NFL moments with the highlights in the NFL.
I know I was talking about it with Leone and Gretch, except for just about, you can buy the Derrick Henry stiff arm. I mean, think about the Odell Beckham one-handed catch. I mean, some of those, I don't know, maybe you'll disagree with this because I think you're probably equally into NBA and NFL, but I feel like some of the moments in the NFL even feel a little bit more iconic, just the way the game is structured. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, maybe. I think there's some really iconic NBA moments, like LeBron James chasing down block of Iguodala, Michael Jordan like switching hands midair. Michael Jordan dunking from the free throw line. There's a bunch of moments. Kobe, I could see having some really cool stuff. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But yeah, it's a really weird world we're living in, dude. I mean, it is strange, and trying to learn as much as I can. The Discord for this platform, I
popped into it. Yeah,
dude, it is off the charts. And you want to hear a hilarious story?
Yeah.
So Jeremy Bales and I were all talking about wanting to make a move. I had it on speakerphone, and somehow I pocket dialed the Discord while we were on the speakerphone scheming to buy this. And someone actually helped me get in touch with the guy that we wanted to buy the card from, or the moment from. But talk about embarrassing, huh?
Wow. Oh wait. So it was like in the voice channel for it, and they were
somehow
listening.
Like hit something on my keyboard or something. I was drinking a beer, being a donkey, and then somehow called the whole chat, told the whole community our plans, and it still worked out. So.
And so you just mentioned, because the way the marketplace functions, it's kind of like an almost eBay style thing. But you guys brokered it like off of the marketplace, as far as it wasn't a publicly available listing?
It was a public.
Oh, you just broke up for a sec, Pete.
The buyer, he had it listed for $30,000, and we negotiated down to $30,000. That's bad.
You just broke up as you were responding to that.
Sorry about that. Yeah, hopefully I'm back now. So we talked with the guy, and we negotiated it down from $39,000 to $35,000, and nice. He had it available for $39,000 in the marketplace, and we did the transaction through Top Shot.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to rein myself in from not talking about Top Shop. We will have
Dude, no, you got to. Let's open one pack before we get into the NFL.
Okay. All right. Let's open a pack. Look at this, Pete. Like, as if it took me anything.
Oh, look at you. You're already on there. See that?
Oh no, dude. Look at this. Is what happened, Pete. I made a couple purchases. I have no idea what I'm doing. Someone already said right here, just saw this under hot purchases tab. Congrats on your Top Shot thought leader status. Someone already saw that I bought a bull assist, Pete.
Sharp. That's why you're the thought leader, dude.
Yeah, no idea what I'm doing. But yeah, let's open a pack here because it is fun. They have the $9 pack sets. I had to talk to my credit card this morning for a while to let them know what I was doing. They weren't liking this. Let's see if I actually have money. It might actually get rejected again.
Well, if you don't have money on, no worries.
It is fun. I will say, like, the user experience is awesome. They've done a great job of basically simulating what it is like to buy a regular pack of cards.
What do you think about the music?
Well, it's kind of, they just have basically one little electronic track on repeat, right? On loop.
The music has been, some people love it and some people get annoyed by it. It's really funny.
Yeah, I wonder too if they would stop. I don't know why this isn't working here. Let me try again. Yeah, I wonder if they can start to expand that too, of having different, music tracks and different other kind of stuff, if they can build out that experience. I don't know why this isn't working for me.
Oh, here we go. You can talk NFL.
I've already spent the amount of money in my wallet and I need to make sure my credit card works, but don't worry. We will be doing more Top Shot stuff, I envision, in the future. But yes, you can open the pack. I can go back and just show one of my, I'll show you my other one I bought.
Show off your moments, bro.
Yeah. Like, dude, just show your moments.
Yeah, come on.
What other ones that haven't made its way to Twitter that you've purchased? Have you bought any that you're excited about?
Harden purchase, which is not nearly as good as the jaw purchase on a relative basis, but I do think if Harden plays well with the Nets, it'll be really interesting to see how he appreciates in the card market. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure, but yeah, Zach LaVine is someone that I think's really improved, has a really good chance to be the most improved player. So I bought him. I got some Jamal Murray, Jokic. Malcolm Brogdon, my dad loves him. My plan is to gift my dad. He's a huge University of Virginia guy. I want to gift him all these moments, at some point in time. And that's one point I didn't make about this too. I'm in Nick Tomino's crypto fund, and he's just done incredibly well. And he's really immersed, actually in the space, not just speculating. He's meeting the teams. He's in Asia. He's traveling, and he's trying to figure out which people are passionate about this and actually trying to solve real problems versus just trying to get rich. And he's really bullish on NFTs and collectibles. And he actually gifted Top Shot moments to all his friends for Christmas.
That's super cool.
So that's what he's in it, dude. I mean, he has been almost every crypto fund that started in 2017 went bust, and he's taken the long view. And as an LP, we've only deployed a certain amount of the capital so far. So the fact that he is interested in this platform, I thought was another really bullish sign.
This was probably my best pull. I think I bought like 3 or 4 packs, but this LeBron one, but just
see the availability for sale by collectors. That's how you can get a sense of what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, the lowest ask is $35 and it was a $9 pack. So just even at the low end, I think it's doing pretty good. Because it is serial 1270.
Yeah, so look at, you can see, if you click on that 353 available for sale. So scroll down. If you scroll down, you click explore all listings, just a little bit up.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
So that's how you can start getting a sense of what these are. So you can go through and you can actually see some of the sharp traders, some of the not. You can look at the listings around where you are and see what, So if you really, you could sell it for 35 right now for sure. But yeah, you could probably list that at $40-$45. It should be worth.
Yeah.
Amounts up, and that's where there can be some inefficiencies as the platform's growing, is that people put some up and they forget about them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is fun. You can definitely go down a rabbit hole scrolling through these and finding some maybe undervalued assets. And are you intrigued both as a long-term hold strategy on these, or are you also intrigued as a day trader mentality with it too?
Both. And I want to learn. I mean, that's really, I'm most interested in the business. That's what I'm most interested in. Will we see a big shift towards digital collectibles? I think it makes way more sense. And I love the sports stock market concept. And if they can figure out a way to add utility to these moments, then I think we're really cooking with gas.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We will talk more about NFTs in the future, but now it's time to talk some football. Pete, are you getting fired up for this 4-game divisional slate?
Dude, it's going to be awesome. Really fired up for the DraftKings slate. And you know what else I've been grinding is the underdog streets. Have you done any of those best ball for the playoffs?
So this is what happened to me, Pete. I did probably 80 drafts for the main, the gauntlet. the mittens. Yeah. And then this is what I've done. I basically self-excluded myself this week from the next round because I go back to that addictive personality. I knew that the second I did my first one, I was going to end up doing 50 throughout the week. And I'm entering in a new era. I am putting my phone in my office before bed. When I wake up in the morning, I'm reading and meditating before I see my phone. And I said, underdog, as much as we love them, it was going to get in the way of what I'm trying to do right now. So to answer your question, I have been in those streets, but not this week.
How many did you get through of the 80 to the next round?
Not enough. Like 14 and like 10 of them are dead.
They're not. How do you know they're dead?
Because they have Ben Roethlisberger as my only quarterback.
Oh, that's how you. I think a lot of people got through with Big Ben and all the Steelers guys, though. So it was a really low scoring slate, and the Steelers just like broke the slate. So, yeah.
Did you get a decent amount through?
I got some through. Similar situation. I have one team that I'm somewhat optimistic on in the $100 that has Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, which like no one has. So I had some Steelers, but I have Ravens and Packers stack basically with two Steelers that got me through. Nice.
Yeah, I will say of all, and I'm curious your thoughts on it too. I mean, we both love best ball and stuff. I found this challenge with, how to factor in the bye week teams, how to factor in advancing each round, but making sure you're live to have, 5+ starters in the Super Bowl. I found it the most interesting contest that they've had out yet.
Yeah, me too. I'm super bullish on best ball. It's so much fun. And I thought it was freaking awesome.
It's so good that I literally had to self-exclude myself this week. That's the best endorsement I can get.
You do get all, I remember when we were in Vegas for the Gambling Olympics, you were like, absolutely shredded, all in on the intermittent fasting. I admire that. And I feel like that's a trait that if you can find in other people, like almost always those type of people are successful. So it's funny. Obviously there's downside of that type of personality. I have it too. When you're up till 2 a.m. On NBA Top Shot, when your wife's pregnant and mad at you, it's probably not the best, but it's fun. It's fun to have that type of personality. And I do find that people who are like that tend to have success. I got to ask you about that because you and Ashley, there's an established rapport on Twitter, but I feel like the frequency of the Ashley posterizing Pete, I feel like it's ratcheting up here as a child and the new house and everything's on the way. Do you feel that too? Oh yeah. Well, the problem is I have no humor and she's legitimately like the funniest person I know. So I'm going to get dunked on. I'm going to be like, I don't even know, Jason Terry when LeBron James dunks on him. That's just going to be me like trying to go up for the block and then just realizing like halfway through that, just get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk football. The people want football. I do think this is an awesome slate. Like looking at ownership and stuff, nothing's getting too out of hand. I think if Latavius Murray, for some reason, I don't know if we have a practice report on him, Alvin Kamara's ownership could get crazy. We now have, what's that?
Can I add one thing I meant to say?
Of course.
Sorry, I was just reading the chat. I'm not an investor at all in Top Shot. Obviously, now we have incentive for the platform to grow, given we're active participants in the network, but not investors. Which I know there's a lot of speculation that was the case. So people were speculating that we're just doing it. We were paid to do it. Not the case at all. But obviously, we have incentive, and that is a tricky thing in general with crypto and all this stuff that you do have incentive to grow the network, and that makes people think of like Ponzi schemes and MLMs, and the world's changing. I know you still have to be skeptical and really think things through, but with like money and these things, like it's just adoption from human beings. So the bigger these networks get, the better, and that's why we're so adamant about promoting it.
Yeah, and also if you're trying to put the breadcrumbs together of how Bales found this, it's from the guys who invented CryptoKitties. And Bales was like, it was a meme that Bales was obsessed with CryptoKitties. So not hard to imagine that Bales would be seeing what those guys put out next.
We actually told Bales about it, and like we found out about it first, and then Bales was like all in like a day later.
Okay, all right, there you go. All right. We are now going to talk football. We must talk football. Pete is like doing the version of the Adam bit when I was trying to ask him about cash game plays, and he just kept telling me GPP plays. Am I getting punked again, Pete?
No, I want to talk football. I'm eager for it. But that dude, how does he not give his cash game shell anywhere? Even on the Establish the Run show, he doesn't. Come on, Levitan.
I know, man. We did get him to crack a little bit towards the end. You mentioned Donald Parham and his eyes light up, and he started to give a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we still got to get more out of Levitan, but
we do. So first of all, like on these playoff slates, short slates, I mean, I know you're a guy that plays everything. Are you playing both tournament and cash for these slates? Or are you focusing on one this week?
Or it's both, man. I think these are like the best slates of the year. In particular, I think this is my favorite playoff slate. So yeah, I'm super stoked for it.
Yeah. So I had another question too. Someone in the Discord had asked about, because you play in a lot of the higher buy-in small field stuff where, the projected ownership can kind of change from what's out there, which is more for the large field stuff. And someone in my Discord was asking, how do you kind of factor in the ownership differences in those smaller field contests? Are you doing your own kind of manual adjustments in your head, or how do you factor that in?
Yeah, well, obviously the higher equity plays are going to be higher owned and higher stakes. And I think Leone's done a really good job breaking down kind of how he's attacking them. And I've learned a ton just from listening to him and Dink on Establish the Million. And basically you have to just get a sense of some of these higher owned equity plays being higher. You know that they're already going to be high owned in like the Millionaire Maker, but they're going to be really high owned in the high stakes. So you have to really think about your lineups relative to some of those plays. And specifically in like the high stakes cash stuff, there's a lot of guys who are playing their cash game teams too. So a lot of people are going to have similar type teams. So getting leverage off those teams, I think, is the best edge. And sorry, I think my internet is being slow. Is it horrible for you?
It's been lagging a little bit, and then you'll come in and out. Like the last 30 seconds have been fine, but you have been a bit spotty.
All right, I closed everything down on my computer. Hopefully,
you have too many Ja Morant gift tabs rolling right now, Pete.
I don't know what it is. My computer, it's frustrating me. But I did just get a new setup, and man, you'll be proud. We have a demo starting. I got a studio being built in the new house. So only a couple more months of just terrible setup, but it's coming together.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm gonna have to hit you up. I want to hear what stuff you're putting in there. It's I'm sure it'll be very, very sweet here. Thank you, Noel Fan, for the super chat. Noel Fan has been going around to all my shows, but he's punking me because he was far more generous on the other streams, and now he's just penny pinching here with the $1.99. But I will take it, Noel Fan. Thank you for your super chat. Okay, so I think the first thing that's interesting with this slate is early in the week, it seemed like Mahomes' ownership was going to maybe kind of start to double up Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And now when I was pulling in updated stuff, it seems like they might all be bunched together. Mahomes is the 1A, and then Allen and Jackson right behind him. Do you have a thought there as far as, just eating the Mahomes chalk now that they're all closer together? Or do you want a little bit of an ownership discount on those three guys who have that big ceiling?
Yeah, that's a real struggle because I think it's tough to, it's site dependent, but it's a little tougher to stack Kansas City. Like a contrarian stack I'm looking at that is Josh Allen, I agree, is going to be a little bit higher owned, and maybe he's ticking up now. But like after the air ball from John Brown, I'm really interested in him. Whereas Mahomes, Kelsey will be more higher owned. But at the same time, like because of the pricing, it's tough. Like the Kansas City stacks are really tough to make the rest of your lineup. So yeah, my sense was initially that Mahomes was going to be the chalkiest option, but I do see Allen and Lamar getting a little bit higher now, especially since like your teams end up looking a lot better and more balanced with those guys. Cause a lot of the Mahomes stacks you want to make are with like Tyreek and Kelsey.
Do you have, you mentioned in some of those contests, you get a lot of the Empire Maker, type chalk kind of cash lineups in there versus, going overweight on a game. Obviously last week, if you put all your chips in on that Brown Steelers game, you came out looking nice. Does this slate feel like a pick your spots, play the best play slate, or identify the right game and go all in on it type of slate?
I think the game stacks are really big in these in general. And that's what I did last week and was looking so good until that last game. But yeah, I do think it's a mixture. And people watching the stream know that the late swap is just so valuable. So I do think that there's merit in game stacks and leaving yourself optionality. I think on the smaller slates, it's tougher to find like really contrarian plays that are good. But the key to me is like your lineup construction as a whole and not just jamming a bunch of chalk together. Like if you're going to take some chalkier options, make sure you get some mini stacks or differentiating pieces because there are going to be a lot of similar lineups. And you saw that last week. Like Josh Allen was like 60, 70% on FanDuel, and like, yeah. So just paying specifically on like the 2-game slates, where ownership is going to be concentrated. DraftKings should be a little bit better, but I look at ownership more as a whole on these playoff slates, and then finding those spots where you're not giving up too much equity instead of just getting like really crazy like you could in the regular season.
Do you have any kind of tips for people with, late swap? Like you said, this is a great slate to even practice your late swapping because you have so much more time to think about it, so much more information to make a good decision. Like one example from last week that helped me out is the projected ownership on Derrick Henry ended up coming in a lot lower in reality, which immediately told me, okay, Alvin Kamara is going to be mega chalk. Because Kamara and Henry were going to be the ones competing. And so I was able to get off of Kamara in a few spots where I needed to cover ground. But in general, do you have some things that you like to do? Because I feel like the toughest thing for people is when they still have a lot of their lineup left to go. And maybe they didn't have that one piece at the beginning that you just know you're going to need to win a tournament. But it's hard to know how aggressive you need to be. Like I was wrestling with, do I need to pivot to Latavius for all of this leverage last week, or can I go to a Kareem Hunt type thing and not be quite as aggressive? How do you think about that when the amount of information you have is a little more murky?
Yeah, it's a great question. And last week was so interesting because basically everyone was busting. So you kind of felt good about the chalk that you still had. So I think you have to be dynamic. And this slate's interesting in that, the first game I think is going to be the lowest owned game. So you're not going to gain that much information. I'm curious to see how owned Devontae Adams is. But then, I mean, this the next game with the Bills and the Ravens, I expect we'll gain a lot of information, and that's where you'll know kind of what you need to do. Because if we expect Lamar and Allen to be the second and third most owned quarterbacks, like seeing how their ownership actually shakes out, that will kind of indicate to you, how many Kansas City Brown stacks are there. And then the last game, the hammer, like. That's where I'm really interested in figuring out what's going to go on because the total in that game is actually going up. Same with Kansas City, Cleveland. But the fact that the Saints-Buccaneers game continues to trend up, I mean, that's a great hammer, and there's so many different options and ways to be contrarian. So I think that second game on Saturday is really going to dictate kind of the strategy that you're going to have. And, of course, like the best part about this if you're playing multiple teams is, going to more crazy teams on the spots where you didn't start off as well. And then where you did start well, you can absolutely eat more chalk. So I think there's so much skill in these slates. I think they're so fun. And I'm really trying to figure out the late night games for both days. I think this Buffalo game, I was really interested in at first and seeing the line kind of stay the same and see the other Sunday games move up in total and specifically thinking about the ownership in the Tampa Bay Saints game, I'm starting to get more interested in that spot. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I do think it's, similar on these main slates too. When you have the chalk in the 4 p.m. games, it's so much more helpful. Like I kind of like, I think Kamara will probably end up being the highest owned guy on the slate. He goes in that last game. So if you're starting, theoretically, I would maybe like to build my lineups with Kamara in the flex. And then if we come around and I'm rolling, then you just let Kamara ride. And if not, then you're starting to look at, okay, maybe I pivot to Evans. Maybe I pivot to Godwin. Ideally, you have 2 players, right? So you can
that's what I think.
2 players so you can have max flexibility on the 2v2s.
Yeah. And also, like, we talked about Lamar and Josh Allen, which I think are a little bit more in play. I mean, they're both good plays on DraftKings, but I think on FanDuel, they're really compelling relative to Mahomes with the rushing equity that they have and that they're cheaper and Lamar being way cheaper. On DraftKings, I think that ownership is going to be more spread out than people think just because someone even like Baker, I mean, he's 5,300. I think that's a really interesting spot for him. You have Drew Brees, who I don't think people are going to play, and that I'm starting to look at. Tom Brady isn't that expensive. So I agree with you on Kamara. I think he's going to be popular, but there's a lot of directions to go. And if you have a quarterback from the later games, you can, obviously you're going to have a game stack. So I think there's a lot of different directions that you can go. And on this slate specifically, I think that last game, like, I expect a pretty big ownership difference in like Michael Thomas and Kamara versus all the Tampa Bay guys. So there's definitely easy pivots. Like if you have a team that starts off decently well with some other small pieces that, originally was a Tom Brady team, maybe you switch it to Brees, Thomas, and Kamara. And if it goes bad, then maybe you go Brady, Godwin, Gronk, or something.
Yeah, no, I think, and we've seen that all year with the Bucs, right? Because people don't know whether to play Evans, Godwin, or AB. And so then the ownership is, lower on all of them. I was impressed with Evans last week. I was worried about him with that hyperextended knee, all of that stuff. And he comes out, looks great. And I think he's been their best wide receiver this year. So both him and Godwin look at nice plays. And like you said, if you leave open a couple spots there, we also have Ronald Jones, who probably could be a game time decision, it sounds like. So I like that idea of having a couple spots open with that game. And then the way the salaries are going to work out, if you have a Kamara combo, you're probably going to be able to do just about any 2v2 swap you want. So I think that's definitely a great way to look about it. Do you have any thoughts? This was from Harbs earlier. Now that we have Sammy Watkins ruled out, any thoughts here on, everybody's favorite Buzzy Mecole Hardman versus the tried and true Demarcus Robinson?
Oh, I've gotten this wrong so many times. The most expensive moment in the last couple of years was when Hardman had that long touchdown call back. I think it was last year. I'm almost positive it was last year when I was on him and no one really else was. And man, I've gotten burned. And obviously everyone likes to make fun of my double dip, commentary. So, Demarcus Robinson's probably safer. The one thing I will say about Mecole Hardman, as good of an athlete as he is, seems like he's maybe a mental midget given, how Mahomes kind of interacts with him on the field and the fact that he just doesn't play as much. He's so talented, and I think he's just not understanding what Mahomes wants him to do. And I don't mean to make like a horrible assumption, but like clearly something's not clicking where he's not, fulfilling his potential because for how talented he is, he should be out there all the time.
Do you have thoughts on, there was a narrative I feel like emerged at some point in the season, which was Demarcus Robinson is Sammy Watkins' direct backup and Mecole Hardman is Tyreek Hill's direct backup. And the reason why Mecole Hardman's role doesn't increase when Sammy Watkins is out is because, whatever. Do you buy that or how do you think about it?
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. Especially with Hardman and Tyreek, given, they're both burners. And I do think that that's the best use of Hardman. And when you watch the film and kind of what he's doing, he's running a lot of the motion stuff to keep the defense off balance. And they want to get him like easy, obvious plays. And then when he's a receiver, the best situation for him is when he's just running straight down the field to kind of loosen the defense. So that makes total sense to me. There's just a couple moments that are just standing out where Mahomes is throwing to him and he doesn't, where Mecole Hardman does not do what Mahomes wants him to do.
Yeah.
And he gets frustrated. So that's in my head a lot right now. So I'm leaning heavily towards Robinson, but I feel like it's a classic spot where I've played a bunch of Hardman and I get off him and then he goes nuts. I'm not the right guy to ask here because I had a bias before. And
so one thing that I've gotten better about this year is I've done pretty good job, unless it's like Denzel Mims, of detaching my biases and just letting the ownership make that decision for me. So I'll just rely on updated ownership, I think, and probably just play the lower owned of those two if I'm doing like Chiefs onslaughts or whatever and I need that salary relief. I want to play Mecole Hardman, but if he's double the ownership of Demarcus Robinson, I don't know how that's a long-term winning strategy. Do you have thoughts on the big four wide receivers on this slate? Because we have Adams, we have Tyreek, and we have Diggs and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, pretty underpriced again here, but I think all four of those guys will be similarly owned and all of them have that big ceiling. Do you have a favorite or guys that you're trying to prioritize within those four?
I think Tyreek's probably my favorite overall. I think he'll actually be lower owned because I think more people are going to gravitate towards Thomas and Diggs for the savings. And I think Tyreek is you start a team with Mahomes and Tyreek, you quickly have to make some tougher decisions. So my sense is he's going to be a little bit lower owned, and I think he's just a phenomenal play. I mean, Ward's a really good corner, so that's, I guess, a little bit of a concern. But yeah, Michael Thomas really stands out when you think about Michael Thomas, but his target share is not what it was last year at all. So, I mean, he's still getting, that kind of 7 to 12 target range if you look through his game log, but a lot of 6, 7. I mean, it's 6, 7, 12, 6, 11, 8, 7. Not playing every snap like he used to. So there's a little bit of a concern for me with Thomas's role relative to like the perception. I mean, he's obviously their number one, but I think just given where Breeze is at in his career and all the issues Michael Thomas has had with the Saints and then dealing with injuries, it's not like the same Michael Thomas that we saw last year. That's really what Devontae Adams is, but Devontae Adams is going to see a ton of Jalen Ramsey. It's a lower scoring game. I still think he's a really interesting play. At 8,600, he's even more of the like pay up to be contrarian versus Tyreek Hill. But I think Tyreek Hill is a phenomenal play. And I do think there's going to be more Mahomes Kelsey stacks than Mahomes Tyreek stacks. But maybe I'm wrong on that. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you're probably right. More Mahomes Kelsey, just because outside, I think people will be comfortable going down to Andrews if they need to. But outside of that, I'm guessing people are going to feel like they're throwing darts at tight end, and Kelsey will find his way into more hand builds there. But I think I do prefer Hill versus Kelsey in a vacuum there with only $200 difference in their price tags. And the Adams situation is interesting.
Hooper to me, like the team that I like if you're going to go Mahomes chalk, I like going like Mahomes, Tyreek, Robinson, Hooper, even or Rashard Higgins. Like there's a lot of stacks that work out that way. And maybe you could go full galaxy brain and do Mahomes, Kelsey, Hooper, like the double tight end thing. But I think Tyreek ends up being a little bit lower owned because I expect Michael Thomas to be really heavily owned. I expect Jarvis Landry to be heavily owned. Marquise Brown, who just had a totally new role last week. We've seen that in the playoffs where he's just gotten a ton of targets, and they were definitely getting him the ball, like kind of in like running situations almost. So I expect some of these mid-tier receivers to soak up a good bit of ownership, which I think pushes down Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially in Devontae Adams' case, because I'm not particularly worried about Jalen Ramsey himself. I'm just more worried about the overall pace of that game and it being kind of a slower, the implied totals aren't as great. So it's just not a spot I want to gravitate to. But that said, I mean, if we can get Devontae Adams like sub 20%, right now I'm seeing him projected around 30%. I mean, he's a
on that all day.
You think he'll be under 32?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, how does he get that owned? Like, I just don't see it. I mean, make teams with Devontae Adams, you start having to make a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking. I think because I was pulling in.
Or Kamara's lower owned than you and I think.
Well, Levy has Adams at 36% right now.
No, I don't. I mean, Levitan knows this stuff better than me, and I rely on his ownership projections as well.
Yeah, but I do agree with you, though. When you go through that stuff, I mean, he does feel like the one that's going to get squeezed. I mean, Diggs is underpriced and just smashed. Michael Thomas is extremely underpriced and had the touchdown. And everyone's salivating to play wide receivers against the Chiefs or against the Browns, and now you have Tyreek Hill. So he's definitely the one that's going to get squeezed. It's just to what extent. I think let's talk running back too, because you mentioned Marquise Brown as far as being pretty underpriced for the role we saw wildcard weekend. We have Devin Singletary here at 4,500, which if he's going to get 90% of the touches, is he the free square or is he a trap at what I assume will be like 40 to 50% ownership?
Yeah, I do think people are going to gravitate towards him with the price savings. And maybe Aaron Jones is interesting. He's somewhat cheap too, but the Rams have a good run D, obviously. But yeah, Singletary's way too cheap. I like his pass catching ability, but we saw Baltimore really stop the run. But I think that was a game plan, just saying, hey, we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us. So you can start thinking about that a lot of different ways. But I expect him to be one of the higher chalk pieces, and I'll probably have similar to the field on Singletary. Certainly will have him in cash as of now. Cam Akers is actually rating quite well in my model relative to his projection relative to his salary. He's another interesting one. But yeah, running back seems like there's, I think people are going to play Akers, Singletary, Kamara, maybe Aaron Jones, and then everyone else is going to be significantly lower owned unless, we get definitive news that Ronald Jones is going to miss. But with that game being Sunday night, I think that's going to be up in the air. And boy, was that tilting. Did you have a lot of Ronald Jones last week?
Yeah, I had a decent amount. That lack of news there is brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Dude, that was killer for me. I mean, yeah. That turned a great slate into a bad slate for me.
You mentioned your model. I don't know if your computer will allow it, but if you want to screen share anything at labs right now, we can pull it up.
Why don't you screen share since my computer is being such a mess?
Okay. Yeah, and we're gonna build a lineup here in a second as well. I think Akers is interesting. I mean, the big question for me is, do we see him? We've really only seen him in positive game scripts since becoming the bell cow. I'm a little nervous in a negative game script with Malcolm Brown coming in there more than we'd like to see, in him being a little bit of a trap if he's going to be the second highest owned running back on this slate.
Yeah, I certainly could see that. He's across the industry. He's rating well. I'm using an aggregate projection set of ETR and fantasy labs for now, and then my process is to make some changes on my own and upload some projections that I have, and then kind of blend everything together. And Akers on basically any combination is looking like a pretty good value in a lot of the optimals. And I agree, it seems like somewhat of a trap, but maybe he just won't be that owned. It's a low team total. It's the first game, especially in the high stakes. People want optionality, so that's a play I'm struggling with. And then Aaron Jones is someone I'm thinking a lot about, given that I know he's cheap for Aaron Jones, but I don't think people are going to play that much Aaron Jones. What's your sense on him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up here. I just pulled my stuff, and this is kind of this column here with the red is the blended ownership. So, I mean, Akers at 38%. I mean, I think he is going to be owned. Jones at 31%.
Singletary is way too low there, in my opinion.
Right, because what I think are going to be kind of staples, I think people are going to do the Singletary, Alvin Kamara pairings in general will be the preferred. Yeah. And so it does seem like one of these guys, Jones or Akers, will get squeezed. I kind of think it'll be Aaron Jones getting squeezed of those four.
And maybe I'm wrong. I think Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones won't be his own, but maybe that's my own bias. But you look at these totals, it's just so different for that game versus the next three.
Yeah.
That total's gone down like a point and a half, and the Chiefs game's up 3 points, and now the going past 51, which is a key number, is pretty important for this Bucks Saints game. So I don't know. And especially in the high stakes where I'm paying the most attention to ownership, I feel like this game's going to be under owned, and I'm trying to get a sense of where I should go out of those two guys. And maybe you could really get crazy and play one of the cheaper receivers from that game, and or Tanyan, who we haven't talked about, who I think no one's going to play, and he's pretty cheap. So that's what I'm thinking about for this first game, because that's when you'll get a sense. Like, I think a lot of people are just going to say, I'm going to fade this game, and then I'll get a sense of what's going on. You might be able to get a little bit of leverage versus the field by establishing something early with like a good game from one of those guys. And if you have a dud from one of those guys, then you certainly know, hey, I'm not going to just stack up the chalky, Chief stack with the chalky Browns running it back.
I think that's a really good point, to take shots on some of these early games, even if you're picking your spots, just because that extra, like if you have a tiebreaker, if all things are being equal, projected ownership, projected points, you want to play the guy who's going first. That information is super valuable and allow you to make more aggressive tiebreaker decisions in the rest of your lineup. I think the other interesting dynamic here is Chubb and Hunt. Almost counterintuitively last week, it was Hunt who had the rushing touchdowns and Nick Chubb getting the work in the screen game.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think Nick Chubb is kind of not as game script dependent in this spot, and he's going to be, the fifth or sixth highest owned running back, I mean, that seems like an awesome spot too if you're game stacking there.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Hunt narrative here? Some revenge.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Letting, the Chiefs letting him go revenge, even though they were fully justified to do so.
They basically, his hand was played out. I'm a big Kareem Hunt believer, and I think he's a great player, and so is Chubb, and that's what they're going to want to do, right? I mean, if I'm the Browns, I'm going in there and I'm saying we're going to run the football well. Obviously, they've been throwing the football, but I think the offensive line played so well last week that if they can establish the run, we're in good shape, right? Like that's the recipe for success against the Chiefs, is keeping Mahomes off the field. So we'll see. I think those guys are definitely interesting, and I do, from just making teams, and I'm going to dig into it even more tonight. But like, it's very easy to make some of these stacks with like Higgins, Hooper, Jarvis Landry, and it's much harder to make them with Chubb and Hunt. So
yeah. I think like my current,
cheap, but
I think, my current kind of like GPP brain, where it's gravitating toward, is playing like one of Jones or Chubb, one of these guys that have access to a ceiling who isn't going to be the mega chalk, probably pivoting off of the Singletary chalk and getting, playing a Ronald Jones, even one of these guys down here, and then leaving Kamara in my flex for max, dare I say, optionality late, Pete. That's kind of where I'm gravitating to right now, but I'm going to have to run. I haven't run any of the optimals yet to make sure I'm not missing anything. And I know we're going to have some injury news too. Do you know, did CEH practice today?
I actually haven't checked on CEH. That's a big one, because that'll change the slate too. Like, we have a couple really big moments, and I actually just did a couple things here, and I ran 50 lineups. A ton of them actually are Hooper and Kelsey. So maybe I'm wrong. Really? Maybe that's not Galaxy Brain, because, and I saw Harbs talking about it, maybe that's not as Galaxy Brain, given the lack of like elite running backs on this slate, at least in terms of like what people normally think of as like, I have to have these three guys. I think Kamara is the one that really stands out in terms of a ceiling and just high upside. Singletary is too cheap given the role. So I think those guys will be popular. But after that, I don't think people are like eager to play them. And I think a lot of people are saying 4 wide receivers. But yeah, the optimals I have based on my projections, like the top team right now is actually in terms of projections with the 3 sources I have, it's a Hooper Kelsey team.
Well, and to me, it's, I don't even, everyone has their general, like, don't play 2 tight ends, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, we're on a short slate. Also, again, the way to think about it, right, is Travis Kelce is your glorified wide receiver too, and Hooper projects as one of the best value tight ends. So if you just think about it as playing Hooper as your tight end and flexing a high upside wide receiver in Travis Kelce, I mean, logically, I think it makes a ton of sense, and I don't think it will be that popular unless the optimals are just heavily pushing that everywhere.
Dude, the best ball days are over too, getting Kelsey. I did that again this year. It worked out. It's finally is going to flip. Look at Kelsey's game log. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's been an absolute monster.
And he's gotten double-digit targets basically every game outside of the Bucs game, and he caught all 8 of his targets in that game. So, I mean, yeah, maybe, my sense, I'm always biased towards Kelsey, is that a lot of people are going to play him. His game log is incredible, and I still think he's a really good play, obviously. But yeah, the double tight end thing I thought would be really contrarian, and maybe it's not, especially with Hooper and Kelsey. So.
The question is, even though this game log is super nice, I guess he's at 7,800, not 8,500, but even getting 22 points at 8,500 in high ownership, like, you need him more in the 30-point range at that price and ownership, which he's definitely capable of, but it is starting to get harder with that price tag and ownership.
Yeah, it's not like he's in the high 6s or 7K. So yeah, especially with the ownership, I agree with you. I think let's talk about this Tampa Bay game, because the more I think about it, that's the spot that I'm starting to get interested in. And, Emmanuel Sanders is another contrarian pivot on the Saints. And then all the Tampa Bay guys, I feel like, are going to come in pretty low owned. And we'll see. I guess it comes down to your faith in Breeze, because Tampa Bay has been so elite versus the run. I think that'll continue to be the case. The Saints didn't look good, like, running the football. I mean, they had a couple nice runs, but certainly a bad game for Kamara. It's setting up for a ton of pass attempts for Breeze, and that could turn into a really fast game. So there's a lot of really interesting options. And Brady, I mean, there's 4 guys to stack him with. And because of that, all the ownership is low. Godwin is always low, it seems.
Yeah, he ends up being, I think, the higher owned of the 3, just because he gives you, I think that you get like the volume upside that people want with AB, but you also get a little bit more touchdown equity that you kind of get with Evans, and he's kind of that blended guy. I still think I prefer Evans. His spiked weeks have just been so massive this year when he gets there, the 40 burger game there. So I don't know. I definitely want
the chat saying that the Saints own Evans, and I know the splits aren't good for Evans, and the Lattimore Evans thing. Like you probably like that. That's the narrative, right? Because then people won't play him as much.
Yeah, well, just like Jalen Ramsey shut down DK Metcalf until last week too, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. I played Metcalf last week too.
And the thing,
he was tilting the Godwin drops. I agree. How it was like I can't remember who the announcer was in that game, but gosh, was it Dungy who was the announcer? It was Dungy. It was definitely Dungy because he talked about how great Fournette was at the short yardage situations, or in the red zone, getting those short touchdowns. But he talked about how Godwin's got the best hands like that he's ever seen, and or how Brady said that, and then he proceeded to drop like 3 or 4 passes in a row. So
what? I did just remember before we wrap up and build a lineup, there was just a couple quick hitter questions that I wanted to ask you from my Discord that were good ones. My guy Clay wanted to ask a question that I thought was really good about how you balance, making the best possible lineups when you have, investments in a player elsewhere. Maybe that's in a futures bet. Maybe that's in a prop bet, best ball, a top shot card or whatever. But do you ever have a hard time with kind of both emotional and actual hedging? Like, how do you think about that as it pertains to your lineups?
I think it used to be a problem where I would get emotional and I would just hedge for the sake of smoothing out my returns, and I'd make some pretty negative hedges, especially since I think I was big on the emotional free roll. And now I'm really just trying to optimize for EV. And obviously that's what I was in theory trying to do, but I think I made the mistake of doing too much emotional hedging and trying to kind of smooth out my returns. And now I don't think I'm the best at it by any means, but I really do feel like I've done a good job, especially of my teams that start off slowly, getting more contrarian. I think the biggest challenge is those middling spots. And last week was so strange because it was just such a low scoring slate. So it was really tricky to figure out what to do. This week's even more interesting because we have a true 2-day slate. We had the single day slates that were the majority of the action last week. So the 2-day makes it even more interesting because after Saturday, you're going to have a lot of decisions. And I would say if you're playing a lot of lineups, I do think there's an advantage to getting some information early with some of these guys, but I am going to leave some teams just wide open with Sunday players, but that's probably going to be pretty popular given that those 2 games are trending in terms of the totals.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's do what we always do, which is build a logically coherent lineup on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern with the caveat that a lot is going to change. Pete, we got to beg these guys not to dupe us because I'm going to throw this in. What am I going to throw this in? The $27 blind side. Will you beg the people not to dupe us?
Dude. Don't screw over Mance. I mean, come on.
You got to go.
You're a man of the people. I'll beg. Sure. Yeah.
Please don't dupe us, bros. That's what you got to do. Okay. You have the honors. Kick us off with a stack, a play, the direction you want to steer us with this lineup.
All right. I'm going to start off on brand, and it's maybe a chalky play, but we're just going to go with it. I'm going to put a really cheap guy in to give us optionality. I'm going to put Rashard Higgins, fellas, CSU Ram, on the squad. Do that. I think you can leave him as a one-off piece. You can do a lot of things. He might be a little chalky, but I got to get a CSU guy as our first pick. And now you can go any direction you want.
All right. Well, this is what I'm going to do. Pete and I are doing like a lineup tango, and I'm just reading his moves. So I will get a little mini correlation on the other side. I'll get Tyreek Hill. I think we both like him a lot. Now we are starting to get concentrated on this game, but you can go anywhere you want.
I like where we're going, and we're going to make it a little weird and a little different. Let's do Baker as our quarterback.
Okay. Now I dare you to dupe us, bros. I dare you.
I think Baker is a pretty good option here. 5,300. I'm pretty excited about Baker.
Okay. Then let's do this. If we're rolling Baker, we're rolling a double stack. The question is Landry or Hooper. Do you have a preference?
Dude, I that's your call.
All right. I'm going to do Hooper. All
right. Let's just get the full, since I think it's tough to get Tyreek and Kelsey together, but since we got 2 cheap Browns, we can easily do it with Baker. So let's get Kelsey in there. We got the Galaxy Brain 2 tight end squad.
Okay. What I also think we should now do.
We can't be too chalky at running back, I don't think.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I think we should stick with our thought of doing Kamara with a Bucs wide receiver, knowing that we can swap if we need to.
Okay, I think that works. The problem is I feel like this is going to lead us to Singletary.
Maybe. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah,
we do something different. I'd say it'd be a lot easier to build if we knew the Jones situation. I do like Kamara. What about
It is. Yeah. Yeah, because part of my late swap strategy with Kamara would be to have him in the flex, so it's definitely harder to do when
Let's Kelsey. Kamara. I think we fade Kamara just because that's going to lead us to Singletary and whatnot. Well, then let's do something different. So, like with our running backs, like who could just dominate the game running the football? I think we should. I have a pick if you want me to go first. You're up, right? You're up.
No, no, it's back to you.
I think I picked Kelsey, but that's fine. I picked Higgins, Baker, and Kelsey.
Yeah. So, okay, then I will do it. I will get in a guy that I think, looking at my ownership, is one of the lowest guys in here. I'm going to put J.K. Dobbins in this lineup.
Love it. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to go Aaron Jones.
This is why I know we are not getting duped. Everyone told us this lineup was duped, and then everyone wanted Akers, and we didn't do Akers.
Right here.
All right. Here we go.
Now we just need to figure out how much what we can actually afford.
Can we put in? No, I want to see if we could get up to a Bucs wide receiver.
Well, I don't think I think we're just fading that game with this stack here.
Yeah. So if we put in, let's just put in a middle. If we're fading that game, and let's just say we put in the Saints defense just as a placeholder, that gives us 4,900.
Oh, I got the perfect team.
Yep,
I got the perfect team. Let's go Ravens D. We're fading Buffalo with Dobbins.
Yep.
Ravens D get to Josh Allen, and then we can still get in a Bucs wide receiver here.
Look at that. Look at that clean team. Uses all the salary cap, duped by the 225 bros watching with us right now, but we will all ship it together. Yeah,
that's a pretty good team.
I think it is too.
What else? What options do we have with Antonio Brown? Is there anyone we can
you could go to Sanders.
Sanders, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And get some information on Aaron Jones. Like if Aaron Jones does really well, maybe you get off Dobbins and you go to like Kamara and so you could change around and like, I mean, yeah, you could do a lot of different things with Aaron Jones information. If he does well, I think we stick with this team. Maybe get off a couple. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that you could do. Based on what Aaron Jones does, which I feel really good about. Like having that information on Aaron Jones, I think is great.
For sure. Guys, we did it. We talked Top Shot. We talked getting dunked on by our wives. We talked NFL divisional weekend. Pete, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, dude.
Dude, it's the best. I can't wait till we're in person. And my setup will be good at one point here. So sorry for the lag, but love your chat. Love everything you're doing, and appreciate you having me. And I'll see you in the Top Shot streets, dude.
Let's do it. Yeah, we'll circle back in the off season. We'll get a Top Shot roundtable show going. I'm definitely excited to dive into that more. Obviously, check out Pete's stuff over on Fantasy Labs. We didn't get his model pulled up, but you guys can go check that over at Labs. You can follow him on Twitter, CSURAM88. That's where you get all the rocket emojis. Please subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so. I will be back on Monday reviewing my lineups, and then we'll also be around this weekend on the Tilt Space over on the Line Movement channel if you guys want to watch us sweating our teams. Appreciate you guys. Good luck this weekend.